Getting. Have that.
Morning, you join me here at the Syndicate Lake. I spent the last sort of 4 years fishing the lake. The stock is just out of this world really, and it's something I really enjoy, and it's a place I really enjoy fishing. It's got some beautiful, stunning scaly carp in it. The lake is around 30 acres in size. It's your typical gravel pit really, crystal clear generally, really weedy, savage bars, gullies. It's got a bit of everything, and that's what makes this place exciting. You know, for me it's the shallows, it's the deeps, it just ticks all the boxes. You know, I've been concentrating on this lake all year. It's been my primary venue. Really enjoy fishing the place. Like I said, the stock is incredible. It keeps me coming back every time. That buzz and that drive is always there every trip, and I'm putting in my maximum effort. I have very limited time on the bank, and I like to concentrate on one venue. And this venue, it's quite local to me, so it works out perfect. It's not too far to travel. And yeah, I just really enjoy fishing the place. I've been documenting my own fishing this year, and to be fair, I've really enjoyed doing it. It's something I've always wanted to do, and I've sort of like always never bothered with it. But this year I thought I'd really go for it and document a load of captures and a bit of footage as well. Like I said, you join me now, it's the middle of the year, it's June, it's unbelievable. We've suffered with northeasterly winds now for 4 weeks solid, and it's really hit the fishing hard, and it's been a big struggle. We turned up this morning, again the northeasterly, as I mentioned, it's still blowing. The temperatures, it feels like about 5 degrees in the northeasterly wind. I've started up on the shallow end of the lake. The sun's meant to appear today, and hopefully that'll bring a few fish up here. At the moment it is quiet. It might have to move, but I'm going to sit here because I know the lake pretty well, and I know that when that sun comes up, this area of the shallows, they tend to come up here in numbers. We'll give it a go. If it doesn't happen, we'll move later on and try somewhere else, but fingers crossed that they do turn up for me.
Always nice to get one early on. It's like a 30 pounder as well. Great start to the trip. Couldn't have gone any better. Only been here a few hours. Conditions are rubbish. But you have to be in it to win it. We've got one. Get in. So, just about to get the first fish out from a minute ago. And as we're getting the sling and everything else ready, the reined and left hand rod, which was positioned quite close to it, as it just busted off as well. I've got a 30 pounder in the net. Let's hope this one is equally as impressive. He's just trying to get me around the corner of a reed bed to my left at the moment. I've just got to go careful here because he's pretty close. In fact, he's doing his best to make it around the corner. It's only a reed bed, it's not anything too dangerous. I've actually turned him now, he's actually headed out now. It feels like a good fish. What a great start. You couldn't wish for any better, could you really? You've only been here a couple of hours. I'll make it 2 in the morning. And we got her in. Happy days indeed. 2 in the net in one go. Absolute mental 10 minutes. Both super violent takes. We've got 2 really nice carp. To be fair, that one might even be 30 pound as well. It might be a brace of 30s in the net in one go. If not, it's going to be close. But this second one is what this lake's renowned for, and that is scaly carp. And that's a nice scaly carp, that one. Got a lot to deal with now. Obviously I ain't been putting the rods back out. Got 2 fish in the net now, so we're going to get these sorted out and then get the rods back out, and hopefully we can press repeat and get another one.
And finish our cups of tea.
And finish our cups of tea, because they're going cold at the moment. But what a start.
This is an absolutely beautiful carp. Absolutely made up, 35 pound. What a great way to start this off. See how it goes, but made up with these two. The other one's a lovely one as well, a nice scaly one. This one, not one I've had before, 35 pound, who can argue? It's an absolute stunner. Second part from that brace, beautiful 34 pounder. Worn out after these two, hopefully we get a couple more. We'll put this one back, get the rods back out, because at the moment I'm not really fishing. So hopefully we can get a couple more, conditions have improved. Looks really good today. Better than that cold northeasterly that was blowing this morning with no sunshine. Sunshine's come out now, it's feeling a lot better. Let's get this one back, see if we can get another one. I did mention that this has been my lake I've been concentrating on since the start of the year, and I did have one little venture. I went over to Brasenose 2 on the linear complex. It was a Hinders bait social, and it's not somewhere I usually go, and it's not the sort of style of fishing that I'm really into. I was fishing 28 wraps with 3 rods on a spot of no bigger than a bivvy, and it's not my usual style of fishing, but I really enjoyed it, and it was nice to meet the guys and everything. And it was slow going, it was really tough. The first 24 hours, I think I had a tench, that was it. And then I sort of like next day, I sort of sat there behind the rods thinking this ain't gonna happen, and suddenly the rod burst into life, and 5 bites later in an hour, and it was like, this is linear fishing, you know. It was very hectic, and it's not something, like I said, I'm used to, so it was like a bit manic, rods everywhere, rigs everywhere, bait lying around. It's nice to sometimes do different things and hone your skills as well. Fishing 3 rods on one spot at 28 wraps in a crosswind was certainly testing, let's say that, to the least of what I'm used to. So it's nice to get away and do something different, you know. I caught a few nice fish, I think I had them up to almost mid-30, and yeah, it was just something that I don't usually do, but it was really, really enjoyable, you know. As enjoyable the trip was to linear, and I really enjoyed mixing things up and doing something a little bit different, my heart was really set on getting back down here. You know, I was concentrating, like I said, on this one lake, and it kind of gets under your skin and you don't really want to get away from it, and it was sort of like, it dragged me away really, and I was soon back, like unlocking the padlock at the gate and getting back to things and trying to keep things ticking along, and just press repeat really, you know, get back down and get back on them spots and get things going again and catch a few big fish, you know. Like, for me, like I said, it's not my sort of fishing linear. As enjoyable as it was really nice to get back down on Syndicate and just fish it and just enjoy it for what it is. You know, for me, on minimum time, carp fishing, I have to enjoy one fishing, and the stock is important to me. Not necessarily always a stock, you know, the venue sometimes to me is more important, but when you can get both, like I've found on my Syndicate lake, it all just slots into place and you just never get bored of it, and you can spend years on a place like this. You know, I'm not even halfway through the stock, and I've got years ahead of me, so I'm looking forward to what the next few years bring on this lake, and I'm just going to continue to enjoy myself every minute on the bank and just go fishing. Well, first day's coming to a draw. It's been tough going. 2 bites really quick together, 10 minutes apart, and since then, nothing. Tried recasting the rods, tried to get a bite, tried to force it to happen, but when there's not enough fish there or there's no fish there, that's how it certainly felt, it's just not going to happen. I'm going to put the rods out again tonight, hopefully they creep in under the cover of darkness, which they have done in the past. I've caught quite a few fish in there at night, so it's really been quite a nighttime swim actually, to be fair. Early parts of the year I've done really well in there at night. We'll see the morning spell through tomorrow, because again the sun's due to come out in the morning, and they do like venturing up there obviously when the sun's out, but we've still got this northeasterly wind hammering down this end of the lake. It couldn't be any further from carpy for June if you tried. It's just a shock, it's just shocking weather really, you know. It's trying to make things happen when it's just, the fish just ain't on it. So fingers crossed, maybe tonight I can bag one. If not, I've got tomorrow, see what happens. And I'm gonna get the rods out before dark.
So, last night, I left you last time saying that we're going to see what happens. Not a lot to report really. It feels right and it seems like the fish should be here. The fish in the lake currently hasn't spawned and I'm wondering if maybe that's putting them off feeding. It's actually got quite busy. The other end of the lake is actually busy and none of them guys down that end's had a fish either, so I haven't missed out by not being down that end. I'm still where I think I'd want to be, given conditions and given history and past experience on the lake. You know, I think that this is where I should be. The fish just don't seem to be on it really. They're not feeding, there's nothing really going on. Bringing it back, like, this is where it all kicked off, start of the year for me, January. It was actually late January, early February if I remember rightly. Freezing cold westerly wind blowing up the other end of the lake and I turned up and I actually see a fish stick its head out here. Bear in mind it was early February, the end of January, it was freezing cold, the wind was cold and they were up here on the back of it and I managed to my first couple of captures of the year. It was actually tied in with when I started using the new Fox wide gape long shanks in a size 6. I was using a Ronnie presentation back then and I had my first 3 fish, which for end of January, start of February was incredible. Given how cold it was like 2 or 3 degrees, freezing cold westerly wind, but it made sense for them to be here on the back of it. It's an area of shallows, but the fish in here seem to really like shallow water. And that obviously was why I chose the point swim, and that's where we are now. But yeah, it takes me on to another capture, if I remember rightly. It was February, and again, freezing cold westerly, pushing up that end of the lake. This time they weren't on the back of the wind. I didn't see anything up here. I remember lapping the lake 2 or 3 times when I arrived. -3 it was, I remember it was freezing cold. It was actually really heavy ground frost, and I thought, well, I'm not going to catch this trip. I see a subtle show down in beach swim on the end of the westerly, and I thought, well, it's all I've got to go on, so I just acted on it. Put the rods out, got some nice drops, really felt confident, and it all kicked off at like 5 AM. I had 3 fish, including a big linear, you know, 38 pound, which for February was incredible, and it was a beautiful carp, one of the nicest carp I've caught from the lake, one of my proper favourites. And that was it really. That session was again a flyer for me. As you can see from the video I took of the linear, incredible carp, and 2 weeks later I was back down, and again similar conditions again, westerly wind blowing up into the deep end. The beach swim again looked favourable. I see a carp show shortly after I arrived to the left hand side of the beach over deep water. I just sort of kind of hit repeat really, fish the same spots, had my wraps down in my phone, got straight back on the spots, a few spoms over the top, bit of maggot. I came down with a flu actually, if I remember rightly, that night, and I'd come up over hot sweats, felt really rough, and I knocked a couple of Nurofen back and sort of like just kicked on with the trip. I had no choice really, it was looking good. I phoned the missus, told her I was going to be late home because I felt so rough. I got back into bed, and I remember at about 10:30 in the morning, my right hand rod just busted off. And it's out of the blue because I had no liners, there was nothing happening, I didn't expect to bite it. And I remember hooking this fish and it just powering around and swim, and I was rough and feeling like absolute rubbish. And in the end, it rolled over the cord and I could see it was one of the originals we named Pecks from the lake. It's got massive, obviously, big pecks and a really old cool carp. It's one of the old original fish from the lake. Times like that, February, big carp, you know, that's 2 weeks on the trot, landing big fish. In them sort of times of the year, it's good going, you know. I was made up and I really felt like I had something going down there. Funny enough, a couple of weeks' time, the weather conditions had changed, and it was actually a lot warmer. We had a warm spell come in, and I thought it didn't feel right down there. I stood in the swim all morning, didn't really see anything, didn't really feel it this time. There was an easterly wind, if I remember right. It was actually blowing up into the Snags, and I thought my first trip was due in the Snags. It's an area they really like in the spring, and I thought I've got to get myself up there really and do the day session. And I literally had a day, so got up there, flicked the rods out to the old spots from the previous spring I remembered. Again, got good drops, felt really confident. It wasn't long, to be fair, before I had my first fish. You know, I think it's a 32 pound common. Really nice clean fish.
absolutely made up. Again, it's freezing cold, easterly going down there. It's only a few degrees. And yeah, right result. It was just on a short day session, so it was a brilliant result, that one. And I think it was very similar. I think the following week, again, I only had a few hours spare, and I sort of just hit repeat again, jumped in the snags, back on the spots, bit of bait over the top of a couple of Ronnies, and again, hit repeat and caught another couple of fish. I think if I remember rightly, it was my 250th UK 30. Worldy of a fish, real proper, scaly, heavily scaled carp, almost a fully scaled, absolute stunner, 34 pounder if I remember rightly. Absolute gorgeous fish. I had a mate come down, quickly do a bit of videoing for me, makes life a bit easier when you have a friend do it. And absolutely made up with that fish, you know, a landmark in my fishing. Beautiful carp, happy days, it was a good result. You know, I carried on again in the snags, again, exactly the same conditions, easterly wind, a bit like what we got now when it's June. And I was up there and again, amazing session. I think I had 5 30s, I remember rightly, including some really nice cool carp. And it just, this is how this lake can sometimes go. They turn up in little packs and you get short windows of opportunity where for an hour you might get 3 bites. And then for 6 hours or for 2 days you won't get a bite. You know, they seem to move around really quickly and they respond to pressure. When they're under pressure, they just move a lot of the time. And as I'm saying that, I just had a line on the left-hand rod. Hopefully that's a line and not a bird. That's promising. That's the first line I've had all morning. So again, 2 weeks later, which is typical of me, I tend to get a couple of nights every 2 weeks. It's how my shifts work at work and around family commitments as well. I have to just make things fit in. I was back down and I went up to the snags and wasn't really feeling it. And I walked into the point swim, which is where we are again now, one of my favourite swims, and one stuck its head out round to the right-hand side of me. And I was like, hello, that'll do. So I set up, got my spots, know my usual wraps, my usual spots, plomped the rods out. First overnight, very quiet, and then early hours of the morning again, around 5, 6 a.m, typical of bite time in this swim as usual, that time of year. Rod rips off, and there was a fish I always really wanted. I see pictures of friends holding it and stuff, and I always really wanted that carp. And as I sort of like got it into the net, I could see it was that one. It was a linear. It's a 32 pound linear, so no, not a monster by a lot of people's standards, but this fish was just like, it's one I really wanted. And to see that go over the cord and then to hold it up, and I got some really nice footage of that fish, and it was a really nice moment. It was freezing cold again that morning, I remember rightly. The wind was blowing up and easterly again, and it was bitter, like proper cold. And I was very surprised to see that rod rip off. And then I think it was about half an hour later, the same rod, after I repositioned it, it ripped off again, and it was a 35 pound common, immaculate common, as nice a common as you're going to catch. And it was a really special moment, like, because again, the lake wasn't fishing well at all. It was early in the year, and it was just, it really was nice. And again, the conditions really was poor. It was an easterly, it was freezing cold, you know. And when you're getting results like that, I had 3 fish that morning in total, the common, linear, and a smaller one. When you're getting results like that at that time of the year, you know you're doing something right, you know you're going a step in the right direction. It is a matter of just pressing repeat every time I come fishing, because you just know that what you're doing is working. You don't need to change anything, you know. And so I just carried on doing what I was doing really, and that led me into like a bit of a warmer time, and again it was back in the snags again with another handful of fish. But we're going to talk about that later in the snags. We're going to walk down there and show you around the place, and so just so you can have a look at where the next captures happened. Join me here in the snags, which is a scene of quite a few of my fish this year, especially start of the year, early part of the year through March and April. I've done really well out of here, a number of decent fish, but one that sticks in my memory is, it was a new 40 for the lake. You know, it was a typical spring day actually for a change. There was no easterly wind. The wind was actually blowing a westerly that trip, and it was nice and flat calm in here, and there was a few fish about. I found them up the top end, just around the corner from me here. And yeah, literally had three fish in a space of an hour. It was tough going in the morning. This was the afternoon. I just moved, and within a space of an hour, like I said, I managed three bites. One being a new 40 for the lake called Freescale. That fish is generally an upper 30, so we've obviously seen it's growing, which is great. Great news for the lake. It's a new 40 pounder. I was over the moon, but actually a little funny story about that fish was literally I just moved into the swim. I'd had a 31 within about 15 minutes of being in there. And I recasted the rod, got the drop, but went to put the rod down, set the line, set the bobbin, and it actually pulled out of my hand. I was using those little mesh bags I've been showing you all trip, and it must have barely melted before that rod went. And it just goes to show you how effective that extra parcel of attraction with that bag is. It gets you extra bites, and it gets you bites quickly in some circumstances as well. But that was the story of a 40, and it was a new 40 for the lake. Absolutely over the moon with that. That was the biggest fish so far for me this year, apart from obviously, like I said earlier on, about probably somewhere between 15 and 20 30s this year out of the lake. But that was obviously the biggest so far this year. We've had a little mooch around the lake and we found them in the snag area. On the service, they're up for a floater. We're gonna have a little go, see if I can nab one. It shouldn't take too long. If I'm gonna get one, I think it'll be quite quick. But with floater fishing, you just don't know until that rod goes out. Give it a go, see if we can nab one. Happy days. Swim in the lake. Yeah, get in. We got one. On the floaters, 3 3/4 pound test curve rod, big reel, 18-pound reel line. Somehow we got one. Well, popped round the Snags for a bit of floater fishing, found them on the service, got them going fairly quickly. Can't believe it, I've got a PB floater fish, floater cork mirror, 34 pound, beautiful slate grey one. We're still waiting on them scaly ones to turn up. It's a lovely fish, really long, really wide. We're actually quite shocked. Didn't think it was that big. Some of the fish out there are 40 pounders. And I'll tell you what, I will take this because we've been chasing them around, we're sweating, we're getting sunburnt. Here's the other side of her. Bit of a team effort this one. Ben was helping firing the mixers out. I was on the rod. Got that perfect cast. Trying to draw them away from the snags, which is what we managed to do because the rules state it. You're not allowed to get too close to the snags. So we drew them away from the snags before we casted the rod. And this is the result, a beautiful slate grey, long mirror. Tensing up a little bit on me. I'm sure you'll agree. Absolute banging fish to catch on a floater any day of the week. Brilliant. Right, it's come to the end of my session now, and it's kind of gone to plan. We've had 3 lovely fish. We would hope for a scaly one that this lake's known for, but unfortunately not a really scaly one that we've had, but we've had some lovely fish. And now I'm gonna call it a wrap. We're gonna get out of here, and I'm gonna be moving on to a new lake. So I hope you've enjoyed my fishing from this year. I've got a new adventure to start, a new lake, new challenge, completely polar opposite to this lake really. I'm really looking forward to a new place, new challenge. I'll come back here, but I'm gonna give it a rest for a while. Just fancy somewhere, different change of scenery really, try and fish for some other fish. A ticket came up and I couldn't turn it down, so I'm gonna have a go there. But we've really enjoyed the trip. I hope you've enjoyed watching my documentation over the last sort of 6 months of fishing. And now I'm gonna move on and try another pond. Well, last time you saw me I was up on Syndicate Lake. It was red hot, This time we're here in autumn. It's now middle of November. It's freezing cold, the wind's blowing, it's been hammering with rain. I've got a couple of nights at my disposal. Weather isn't the greatest, but it's autumn. Anything can happen, but it is a tricky lake. It's been tricky for me this year, on and off. I've managed a few fish, but I haven't had any real good ones yet. A lot of them have been small fish, to be fair, the stockies that are within the lake. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we can get one of the originals, but it is a tough order on here. To get bites at demand, it's hard work. But let's see what happens. I arrived yesterday morning. I stood in this swim, which is one of the swims I've been targeting. I've been also baiting for the last few weeks, just to really try and get something going. I've been away from here for a few weeks as well. I've been over on my Syndicate lake for a few guest sessions. So I've been concentrating on a couple of areas here. I'm down the deep end at the moment. I tend to choose a deep end in the autumn to concentrate on because I believe it's an area they're going to investigate a lot more than fishing up the shallow end. Luckily for me, there's two lovely spots out here. I've been baiting for the last couple of weeks. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, they've been eating that bait. And no ducks have been diving, no ducks have been picking up any old bait. So that's always a good start, especially the amount of bait I've put in as well. I've gone quite heavily on the bait in the last couple of weeks. And I'm hoping these fish are going to turn up and hopefully they're going to have a little bit of a feed. It is a tricky lake. I have spent a lot of blank nights on this lake in the past. I've put in a lot of effort and not had a lot of reward, to be fair, when it comes to actual fish sizes. So I'm kind of hoping this session I can maybe get one of the originals. But like I said, the weather's really against me. It's not the greatest for this area of the lake this session, but let's see what happens. Bite out of the blue, really. Didn't see anything. To be honest with you, it's looked a bit doom and gloom this morning. I didn't really expect the rod to go. Strange bite, pulled up a bit tight and then dropped back. Now I'm attached to a very angry, decent looking common. Getting! Have that! What a result. This lake isn't easy. And I'll tell you what, that's a result. Didn't see that one coming. Absolutely beautiful autumnal common. Leaves are falling, it's raining, it's cold, and what a result. My biggest fish from the lake, proper autumnal bar of gold. You can hear the rain pouring down now, it's dropping through the trees, the leaves are falling. It was cold last night, water temperature's absolutely freezing. Proper result. Mega carp as well, very happy. Makes all that hard work throughout the year really worth doing. With carp like this as a reward. Really old common, this one. Absolutely buzzing. I hoist her up. Wind's blowing me in the face, it's freezing cold. What a result. Didn't think it was going to happen today. Out of the blue. Beautiful common. Well, early this year, I finally got the email I've been waiting for, and that was for this lake. It's a park lake, it's in the middle of a housing estate, which sounds mad to most, and it's not really what most people are into, but it's certainly got its challenges, let's put it that way. You know, I've had some funny stories to tell this year on here, but it's an incredible lake. It's low stock, but they're really cool old carp in here. Fortunately, a few years back they did have a fish kill, and they boosted the stock with stockies. Nice fish, some VS fish and some other fish from elsewhere. Really nice little fish, but not what I was obviously come here for. Came here for, there's a fish in here known as the Big Lynn. It's a really cool carp, and it has done weights in the past of excess of 45 pounds. It goes missing a lot though, shall we say. It hasn't been caught now. It's gone past 2 years since its last capture. So I knew, obviously, being a family man, got a busy work schedule, obviously got 2 kids, I know it was going to be tough on here to catch a fish that hasn't been caught for over 2 years. There's some really good anglers on here, the calibre of anglers really high. But I felt like with enough effort, enough hard work, I felt like something could happen. I might just get that chance. And better to be lucky than good, they say, and I've had a bit of luck in the past with fish. So I think next year I'm going to change my plan of attack, but this year my plan of attack in the end came down to pre-baiting. I knew after the first month of flitting around, I managed a couple of fish early on, just stockies, and it was more chance bites. I was never going to put together a collection of fish the way I was fishing. I was learning the lake, and to be fair, I decided enough was enough. I decided to pre-bait, and pre-bait heavy as well. I went in really heavy with the bait in an area of the shallows up the other end from where we are now, and it kicked off, to be fair. I think I amassed something like 10 bites in a matter of a couple of months. Had some really nice carp through sort of July, August. I spent my time at the shallow end. Despite getting a lot of bites from the other end, it just didn't feel right. I didn't feel like I was getting close to any of the big ones. I hadn't really seen anything decent up that end. Like I said, I amassed a lot of bites and caught a lot of fish, but they were the smaller residents in the lake, and I'm not here for the smaller residents, I'm here for the big ones. I felt like this end was going to be the one. It was late August when I first come down this end, and I actually viewed some fish showing one morning at first light. I sort of clocked the zone and I thought, do you know what, I never see anybody put rigs there, and that's why I chose that area out in front of me. It's an area that no one else was concentrating on. It was an area that no one else was putting lines in, and everyone knows that carp are creatures of habit. They tend to go where lines are not being put. So I clocked this zone, leaded it up, found a nice area out there, decided to give it a bucket of bait, gave it a bucket of bait. I was due back down in a couple of weeks in between shifts. First trip down, put the rods out, spots felt cleaner instantly, and I thought they'd been feeding out there. Like, I was buzzing, like, I just knew. Going into the first night, nothing happened. I woke up in the morning feeling a bit dejected, really. Shouldn't have, because within 30 seconds of being awake, the rods pulled up tight in the way it was, and it was a lovely, old, classic, as you like, estate carp, a nice zip line, really nice old fish. Weren't a big fish again, which I was a bit disappointed in, but it was a 20 pounder and it was a lovely fish. And sometimes it's not all about weights, it's about the fish. And it was a cool carp, and it was one of the older ones, and I was over the moon with that. Same trip again. Later on that morning, the rod was away again, and another nice fish. Again, not a big fish, which again starting to grate on me. Obviously at this point, I caught a lot of fish, but I hadn't caught any of the big ones. But it was another nice fish, nice clean fish. I'm away. That's a weight, isn't it? Is that doing anything? Yeah, that's a fish. Doing a little bit to camera there, and the rod's pulled up tight. I'm away. I think this one's a tench. Not the intended species, obviously, on gear like this. But it's action on the spot. I was actually seeing a little bit of slicking going on. Like, about half an hour, I thought, maybe there's some carp about. And this is, I'm pretty sure it's a tench. It's very zigzaggy, but there's a lot of stockies in here, as we were talking about behind camera. And it could quite easily be a small stocky. Just hope it don't wipe out my other lines like it's just about to. It's actually a carp. I'm actually completely wrong. And it just done a salmon jump, which is not normal for a carp to do. But it is definitely a carp, and it actually didn't look like a bad one. But I'll tell you what, it's got some lovely autumnal colours on that fish. And I really hope that I can get this in, because it's a really cool little carp. And I think it's almost beaten. And it's still not giving up. This time of year they do fight well. And this carp is no different to the others in the way it's fought. Tell you what, we'll take that. I'm thinking it was a tench. It's definitely not a tench. It looks like a really old, funny, parroty type one. It's got tiny little pecks, little withered. That's probably why it fought like it did. Well, just doing some pieces behind the camera. Rod pulls up tight, thinking it's a tench the whole way in, and this little cool character's turned up. Tiny little pecks, tiny little withered down fins. One of the real old ones of the lake. That's a sure one. This one's got a story or two to tell. Really cool carp. It's cool. They have to be big to be cool. This is definitely one of them fish that are cool, man. Over the moon, proper result. Really, really happy, made up. It's gone better than it ever could have. Happy days. Right, before we were rudely interrupted by Mr. Carp, which I thought was a tench, it was a couple of weeks before I got out after the first couple of fish from this swim. Again, I had overtime, had work. Generally at this sort of point, I was only doing one night, sometimes 2 nights every 2 weeks. Just depends how it turned out, to be fair. But yeah, I was back down here, pretty much press repeat again, fishing 2 rods on the long spot, which was the main spot that I was mainly concentrating in. 2 rods fishing quite long. The way I look at it is the 2 rod limit on here in the summer, it moves to a 3 rod come October. But the way I looked at it is because I was fishing so long, 1 rig could easily be, maybe not tangled, because where I fish I don't really get tangles, but it might not be sat right, and I wanted 2 out there, so I decided to stick 2 out long on the spot that had produced a couple of fish already. And it weren't until the following morning again, a couple of fish put their heads out over the spot, and I thought, here we go. Like typical fashion, half an hour after first light, rod pulls up tight. Good battle with that one. Took me around the corner into the weed, got stuck a few times. I landed a nice scaly one, or 27 pound of it. Really cool carp though, one of the real characters of the lake. Really nice fish, really nice dark one with loads of scales on it. Bit of an odd shape to her, but it certainly puts a bit of character to the fish and makes it its own. Yeah, that trip was a bit of a weird one. It just done the 1 bite, which kind of become a regular occurrence really. A lot of the times, because of the low stock, I think you get the 1 bite and then it quietens off, they move off, and that's sometimes how every trip was sort of happening. It was 1 bite and then it would go quiet, and then the next morning nothing would happen, and it just felt a bit weird. Like I felt like I should be capitalising on when the fish are there, but I just couldn't. It was literally 1 bite and they move off. And again, it was a good couple of weeks before I could get back down. Surprise, surprise. We were coming into the autumn period now. It was early September, and I really felt like things were going to start kicking off soon down here. And lo and behold, next trip out I managed another 2 fish. This one of them being a really nice old one, which was literally a bang on first light. Typical, the light just started improving and right hand rod pulled up tight. This time it was on a new spot I had found, and I baited for a couple of weeks without fishing it. I like to do that. I like to bait a spot, give it a couple of weeks before I fish it, a couple of bait ups, and I'll put a rod on it. And that spot paid off that morning with a lovely old original again. I think it was around 26 pound. I don't really tend to write down the weights too much on fish like that, but it was a really cool one and definitely a memorable one from my campaign on here. Really cool carp. And that leads me on to sort of like now really. I think I've amassed around 10 bites out of this swim since I started baiting it, but again, none of the real big ones. This trip obviously, it's been great. It's testament again to that baiting up. I keep going on about it, but if you're on minimum time, like myself, you're tied down with work and family, and you just don't really get the time to put in on the bank, then the pre-bait is a massive edge. It is the biggest edge probably of carp fishing. You know, if you can afford to put the bait in, I know it's expensive, but it doesn't have to be. You can do it down a cheaper route with things like corn and a little bit less boilie, but crumb it up so it goes further. You know, that's a good thing about pre-baiting. You can kind of on minimum time, you come down with that, I don't know, with that excitement of what's been eating that bait. You know, has it been cleared off? Has it been getting fed on every single day? And you think to yourself, do you know what? I've given myself the best chance on the minimum time I've got. I've given myself the best chance of producing a fish. And I think without the pre-bait, to be honest with you, with the way the lake's fishing and the lads who I know who are fishing it, I don't think I would have caught a fish. I don't think anything would have happened. I think it would have been a pretty dismal trip. But it's paid off big time. So like I said, if you're on minimum time like myself with a family, you've got other commitments like work, you're on minimum time, put that effort in. It don't take long to go to the lake, put in half a kilo of bait on a spot. You know, it doesn't take long, and I tell you what, the rewards are there, and I've proven it this trip. You know, it really pays off for that pre-baiting, and it's an edge I've been using to my advantage for a number of years now. Being so busy with so little time on the bank, it really pays off. Yeah, it's great. Right, that's the last bomb out for the night. Been putting between 6 and 8 bombs out, sort of thing. Yeah, not too much bait this time of year. That water's temperature's freezing. Don't really feel like they're eating loads. It's a tricky one. I'm not too sure. I'm not too confident, to be honest with you. I haven't seen a lot today as the day's gone on. But let's see what the night brings. Fingers crossed they pay another visit to that baited area, because it's been seeing bait plenty over the last couple of weeks, and I'm hoping they're still hungry and they return tonight. Well, bit of an odd one, this one. Just see a couple of fish actually show over the area, which is unusual for this time of day. And the rod is absolutely not tore off, but a bit of a weird bite really. And you are not going to play. And a really strange, really weird fight from this fish. 1 minute it's going 40 mile an hour in one direction, next minute it's coming back at me. It's picking the slack line up. Now I can see why. It's a male fish with massive tail, massive pec fins, really angry fish. 27-12. It's not the biggest one in here, but I'll tell you what, I'll certainly take it. Temperatures are plummeted. It's freezing cold. Really nice fish. What a way to start the night. Hopefully there's more. Started raining around 4 AM this morning, and to be fair to you, it was pretty relentless. It just rained from 4 till now, and it's just sort of calmed down, but it's time to pack away now. I've had a wicked trip. It's been brilliant having Ben with me, and catching a few for the cameras obviously is the right result. Given conditions, we've done really well. I'm really happy with how it's gone. Might be time to nick one more. I've been getting a couple of bites at 10:30 in the morning, so we've got one more bite time to see out before we pack away and get out of here. But as you can see, everything's soaked, it's freezing cold. I'll be glad to get home and have a hot shower, to be fair. Be good to see the family as well. A lot of hours of darkness. It's cold, it's been windy, it's been raining. We've had it all, to be fair, chucked at us. When I turned up, it was only 4 degrees. I don't think it's got above 10 degrees since we've been here, so the results I've had have been absolutely brilliant. Fingers crossed one more chance comes my way. If it don't, I'm going home a very happy man.